Hi everyone, welcome to My Campus GPS Facebook Live. This is episode 4, and tonight we're talking about what's the one thing that your student can do to increase their chances of winning a scholarship. So this is the place where we talk about how parents can help their high school student prepare for university. And I'm Janet McDonald, and I help high school students and parents with the process of applying to university. So I'm a former university admissions officer. So I help students with things like university admission, scholarship preparation, and career exploration. So like I say, tonight we're talking about something your student can do to increase their chances of winning a scholarship. And this actually came out of a phone call that the topic tonight came out of a phone call with a mom who called me this week to discuss ways that her grade 11 student can increase her chances of winning a scholarship. So, you know, this brought up, I think, or an area that I think a lot of parents and students, maybe they don't really know how to maximize this, so I thought that I would share with you what I told her tonight. So here is what I told her, and I want you to stay with me because you're probably not going to want to hear it or kind of when I first say it. So just stay with me after I say it, okay? So the thing that your student needs to do to increase their chances of winning a scholarship is to do something extraordinary. Okay, so like I say, don't turn me off yet or anything because it's not nearly as bad as it sounds. So, you know, everybody's going, what? You know, here's this, my kid is busy 24/7 already, and here's this crazy person telling me that they have to, you know, do brain surgery in grade 10 to get a scholarship. That is absolutely not what I'm saying, and I'm going to tell you the easiest way to do this as well. So, when I say something that they need to do something extraordinary, I mean it pretty much literally. They need to do a little something extraordinary, something that's a little bit out of the norm, something that not every other student is doing. So they need to separate themselves from the group in some way. So not just to be, for example, you know, a member of the soccer team or a member of some group or something, but a person who does a little bit more than that. And I'm not even talking about that your student has to be the student council president or they have to be the captain of the hockey team or something like that. That is not necessarily what I'm talking about. So I'm talking more about something that's just, like I say, a little bit more than your average student. So now if your student is not really interested in doing anything extraordinary, they still can win scholarships. So I'm absolutely not saying that you have to do this. It's a little bit more difficult, you know, to kind of spin that if your student isn't doing something a little bit more than just being, you know, a member of a group or a member of a team or what have you. But I do know ways that they can still make that work on their scholarship essay, but this is the best strategy for them to use. So that's why I'm saying I'm increasing your chances of winning. So here's a story of how this came up, the topic came up, and why I'm sharing it with you tonight. So I got a call from a mom this week who wanted to discuss ways that her grade 11 student can increase her chances for a scholarship. This mom was quite frustrated because she had been through this process twice before with 2 older children who had solid grades and who were involved in activities and everything, and who had even applied for a lot of scholarships, but hadn't been super successful in winning a lot of them. So she was a bit frustrated because she didn't know why this would be. And, you know, when we first started talking, I couldn't really figure it out either, because it seemed like she was doing, or they were doing all of the right things. But as the conversation went on and I started to kind of ask a few questions, it became quite clear to me that her children were doing really good things and everything, but they weren't doing anything just a little bit different or just a little bit extraordinary or just a little bit more. And that, I think, is probably the reason why they didn't win more scholarships. So I am definitely not saying that, you know, that these kids aren't doing wonderful things, and that that they, you know, they weren't great kids who were doing these awesome things and everything. But if you want to win more scholarships, then this kind of doing something extraordinary is the best, is one of the best strategies that you can use. So, so I told this mom about this concept of doing something extraordinary, and I could almost hear the light bulb going off in her head over the phone, kind of going, ah, now I get it. So she got why her other two children didn't win as many scholarships as she thought they should have. And she understood that what I was saying about how her third child should be doing something just a little bit more to increase her chances of admission for a program that she's looking at and for scholarships. And luckily, this student is in grade 11, so she has time to do this properly before she starts to apply for scholarships in grade 12. So, you know, the rest of the call we spent kind of brainstorming some specific things that her daughter could do to do an extraordinary thing to help her stand out from the crowd. So I know probably, you know, your big question or the big concern right now is, like, how does my student fit something else into their schedule? Because I know they're all busy. So I know that you don't want them to take on another big thing. I get that, and that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. Instead of, you know, kind of going out and doing some, you know, random thing and taking on this big thing, I suggest that they do something within an activity that they're already involved in, and something that they really enjoy doing as well. So, for example, maybe they are involved with like an environmental group at school or something like that. So could they maybe organize a speaker panel, like a panel of experts, like 2 or 3 experts from their 3 or 4 experts from the community, to come in and speak with their group. Or maybe they could even open it to a wider audience and do it for the school or for a community at a community center or at a coffee shop or something like that. So this is something that, you know, they could talk on climate change and how that affects people their age, teenagers, and what that's going to look like in the future, or something like that. So this is kind of taking what they're already doing and kind of just doing a little bit more with it. And, you know, they could even involve other people in helping them to do this. But again, this is something that's going to kind of separate them from the norm, from the group. And it's real, what it's doing is it's showing leadership, and it's showing kind of ownership for an activity or an event, which is a really good thing that they can talk about in their scholarship, in the essay portion of their scholarship. Or maybe your student volunteers in a nursing home. So maybe they would like to have a career in healthcare or something, and they're volunteering in a nursing home, which is great. And maybe your student is also musical, so maybe they play the piano or something, and maybe they have a friend who plays the violin, and maybe they have another friend who sings. So could they maybe approach the people at the nursing home and ask if they could put on, like, you know, a series of little concerts or whatever in the nursing home, maybe once a month for 4 months or 6 months or something like that. And your student could organize a few of her friends to come in, and they each play a couple of songs each or something like that. So it's not too onerous, but it's still doing something that is above and beyond the norm. Okay, so this is what I mean by an extraordinary thing. Okay, because here's the thing. You know, most students who are applying for scholarships are going to have activities that they are involved in. And they are going to discuss those activities on the scholarship essay. And they're going to talk about how those activities and their experiences have, you know, impacted them, what they've learned, and then how that's going to shape them in the future, and blah, blah, blah. So they're going to talk about this. And, like, for example, if if a student plays on a team, has a, you know, a team sport, then they're going to talk about how the team sport helped them build character, how they learn sportsmanship, how they learn that every member of a team is important and everything. And this is all true, and it's all important, and it's great learning and everything. But everybody who is on a team is going to say that same thing. Okay, so everybody's going to talk about basically the same kinds of things. So what's your student going to talk about that's a little bit different? Okay, so maybe another example is maybe they play a musical instrument and they have earned their grade 8 Royal Conservatory credential or something like that, which is a great accomplishment. And, you know, it will help them on their scholarship application. But everyone who has, you know, has something similar to that, or that same thing or something similar to it, will talk about how, you know, earning this credential has helped them to develop discipline, and it's helped them with their time management, and maybe something about culture or something like that. So again, they're all going to talk about the same thing. So what can your students say that is, you know, the same but a little bit different? Okay. So again, you're doing something to kind of set yourself apart from the crowd. Now, if you don't do anything different, you can still win a scholarship. Like I say, you know, there are ways that I know about, and other people or whatever, there are ways that you can craft your essay and do things so that you still can win scholarships. But if you want to up your game, then this is the best way to do it. So your student doesn't have to do something extraordinary in every single thing that they're doing. So just one thing or two things is great for them to do. And here's another thing. It doesn't necessarily have to take up a lot of their time. So I know students, you know, everybody, but, you know, students are busy and they only have kind of, you know, like a finite amount of time. So what are some ways that they can maximize that time and still do something extraordinary? So the answer is really to look for ways that they can fit it into some kind of regular activity that they're already doing. So for example, last year I read about a student who took the bus to school, a high school student who took the bus to school. And she took the bus every day, and it was an hour and a half each way. So she spent about 3 hours, you know, every school day on the bus. And she noticed that on the bus there was a lot of really negative behavior because the kids on the bus were very bored. And they were getting into trouble because, you know, some of them in particular were getting into trouble and causing trouble for other students because they were bored. So she was noticing some intimidation even of the bus driver. She was noticing some bullying behavior and that sort of thing. So this student took the initiative to do this. She actually really enjoyed playing games, and she enjoyed, you know, working with children. So what she did was she created different kinds of games for the kids to play on the bus, and she would come up with different types of games and themed games and all of this sort of stuff. And what happened was the mood on the bus completely changed, and it went from a really negative atmosphere to a really positive atmosphere, and actually the kids really started to enjoy taking the bus to school. They used to look forward to taking the bus to school. So, you know, things just completely turned around, and as you can imagine, the bus driver was very happy, and the parents were happy, and everybody was much happier. And this student actually went on to win the Loran Scholarship, which is one of the biggest in Canada, $100,000 scholarship. So, you know, it wasn't just her bus games that made her win that scholarship, but you can see how someone could, you know, win something big for if they have they take this type of initiative to fill up what, you know, some time that was normally spent in a very negative atmosphere, and to take the initiative to do something to turn that around that was very positive for herself and for everyone on the bus, in fact. So that's what I mean by having your student, is there a way, try to figure out a way that they can fit something into their normal routine, like the student did, for example. So I mentioned in other Facebook Lives that, and anything you ever hear or read from me, I will tell you that the best time to plan for scholarships is in grade 11, or in fact in grade 10 even. So this is a good example how, you know, if you're going to take on one of these extraordinary activities, that grade 11 is a great time to do it. So your student can plan to do this in grade 11 so that they can use the information in grade 12 on their scholarship applications. Because remember, if you've watched some other information that I've done here, and you know, in a lot of my writing, I will tell you that the scholarships start to come out in grade 12 around October. So, you know, it would be great to have your student have completed this in grade 11 so that they can then use that on these early scholarships in grade 12. And another reason is, another thing that I keep telling people is that grade 12 is incredibly busy for students. So they don't have a lot of time to take on any type of extra stuff. They're normally, you know, like head down, kind of working and plowing through. So if you can, you know, do this in grade 11 and kind of almost like get it off your plate and get it done, then you won't have that to worry about in grade 12. It'll already be done, and you can use that great information on your scholarship applications, and it will help to increase your chances of winning. So three takeaways here tonight is to do something extraordinary, or out of the ordinary, to increase your chances of winning a scholarship. And number 2, it sometimes doesn't take a whole lot of extra time or extra energy, you know, to do something extraordinary. And the third thing is, don't wait until grade 12, if possible, to do something extraordinary. So that's my information for tonight. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, I would really appreciate you sharing this with a friend who you think would benefit from it. You can leave a comment and or a question, and I'll check that out later today. And in fact, even if you're not watching live, I check that over the next few days, and I'll answer any questions that you have. You can find a lot of great free information on my website at mycampusgps.ca. And that's it for tonight, and I thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week.